We all back? Raise your hands if you can.
No hand to raise, but I'm back, Artie.
I can safely say there will be no twerking of any kind on this meeting. Okay?
Then I need to leave.
That was the first for me.
Yeah, that was, I hope that wasn't an omen about where this committee is going, I have to tell you, but, so, where did we leave off before the twerking started? I think
the fire chief was twerking.
I think Chief Polly was talking, but maybe he had finished, I'm not sure.
I just, again, to reiterate the importance of getting someone who's got strong Massachusetts background or knowledge of Massachusetts with the financing and the budgeting that we face, and the need to develop additional revenue streams. And then the only other thing I would say that, we have a very, very strong, solid group of department heads and senior staff. And we just need some feedback and some regular communication so that we really know that we're all going the same direction. And I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you, Chief. Artie?
I think that we need a professional town manager or a town administrator. And I think it has to be somebody that has both experience as a town administrator or a town manager or that type of municipal job, along with a background in teamwork and being able to pull people together so that the town needs to move forward in a professional way. And I think it's our next town administrator should be somebody who is not looking for a 3 or a 4 year contract and out the door to be able to beef up their retirement. I think we've seen that in the past several times that obviously that isn't going to work for us. So it has to be somebody that's professional and that can pull people together. Also to be able to help the Board of Selectmen be able to have manageable, professional meetings and to be able to conform to the charter.
Okay. I have a little bit of a different take, and then I'm going to ask Charlie to tell me what he thinks. But I've had to hire many executive assistants at a variety of organizations over the years. many nonprofits that some of you are very familiar with. The one thing I always look for first and foremost before I get into the weeds on technical skills is leadership. Just based upon my own experience as a lawyer dealing with some issues in town, I have found particularly there to be an extraordinary void in leadership in recent years. And obviously, when you pick a good leader, that leader knows how to put good people around them, people with the appropriate technical skills to assist them in doing whatever it is they need to do, whether it be in finance or otherwise. So when I wrote, my three things that I was looking for most, actually four things, they were leadership, someone that is capable of establishing an appropriate culture within the town and within the various town boards, someone with excellent communication skills, and also someone that does have an understanding of the town. But to me, a good leader is something, and I think that kind of piggybacks on what Chief Hurley and Chief Polly said as well as heads of town departments, is we really need a leader in the community that demands and warrants respect, that knows how to communicate with people and knows how to put the right people around him or her to get the job done. Charlie, you have any comment on any of the things that have been said so far?
Well, thanks, Bruce. I was, I've actually been here about 8 months now. And what I've come to find out is, the community to me is incredibly supportive of local government. And when I first got here and I went to town meeting in June, I was worried about what that experience would be. But I think it's an interesting position because you really have a community that's supportive of what local government does, in spite of all the, significant challenges that are facing the town. And through the 8 months, I've, gotten to meet quite a few citizens as well as, volunteers. And I kind of look at Wellfleet as really an opportunity, and a good opportunity. The challenges are real. I was talking to a few people lately, and you've got a few years of really significant work to do in terms of creating, the basic systems of governance that are common and required, whether it be personnel or procurement or financial policies. So there's a lot of, sort of the typical functions that a town administrator does. But to me, so much of what Rick White did and I did over our careers is just communications and collaboration. And if you can do those two things, well, then it's not as difficult as it appears to have been lately. Now, the financial challenges you have are really significant. I'm going to be talking about those tonight at a select board meeting. I'm meeting with the actual select board and the finance committee to present some of the challenges for the next year. But it's, to me, you need someone who's a little methodical, deliberate, focused, and some continuity. And so the only thing your community and what some of the critical needs are. I think, between myself and Rick, we can help to make sure that someone has the basic ingredients of being successful here. The amount of turnover has been really disruptive. I have kind of recognized that, like Chief Polly indicated, you have a core group of department heads that, know their job and have been managing in chaos and doing it reasonably well, because there's been a void here. So, but they deserve better than that, and your citizens do as well. And I do think my bias is, someone from Massachusetts is incredibly important. to know town meeting form of government. And, I think Massachusetts has a lot of citizen involvement that's not as common in other places. And if you're not used to that, that can be really a grave difficulty for somebody new. So it doesn't have to be, but I think like Artie Parker said, someone with Massachusetts experience really would be incredibly valuable. But it's a nice community and a nice opportunity, and there are good people out there. I think the critical element now is that the fiscal issues that I've been dealing with, really mostly the work is being done by Lisa Sauvé and Mary McIsaac. They're the ones in the trenches, and we'll get to a good place. It won't be a complete product. There's still going to be a lot of work to be done, and in recruiting municipal finance officials is terribly challenging in this day and age. And so, that's going to be key here, is getting a support staff here in town hall to help everybody succeed. So that's all I have. Thank you, Bruce.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Rick, I think really the rest of the agenda, obviously, there's no need to go into executive session today on any particular issue because we don't have candidates yet. But if you could just give us a little bit of a background on what it is that you're doing in the way of recruiting right now, so that we just have some idea as to what process you're commencing.
Well, first let me say that I have a deep bias, having been in the field for a long time, that it's easy to find people with technical skills, but the art of recruiting is in finding the right fit. And, consequently, I go to great lengths to do some what I call deep dives in the community and get feedback. And, I got 12 names from the staff and the selectmen of community leaders to interview. And I interviewed them all, and they were incredibly generous with their time and their perspectives. And I will, reiterate what Charlie said. From the people I interviewed, there's a deep commitment to the community and to its local government, and a desire for it to be not only successful, but to thrive and to succeed. And as a recruiter, as a professional, that's very rewarding and enriching and enabling for me. I also interviewed all the department heads, former staff, and some line people. And what I did is develop two different synopsis, one from the community leaders, one from the staff. And I wrote it up and I sent them back to everybody I interviewed to get some feedback from them.
Yeah, I think we've all read them.
And what I'm encouraged by is that nothing you're saying here today isn't included in any of those synopses. And I didn't get any feedback from any of the people that I shared the synopsis with. So I'm sure it's pretty much on target.
Yeah.
And from that, I develop what I'd call a cursory brochure that attracts candidates' attention, that gives them a little bit of information that's more of a marketing tool than it is a fine recruiting tool that provides them with detail. I've sent that out to over 227 managers in Massachusetts, the brochure and an introductory letter encouraging them to apply. And I've also sent it out to about 100 other people outside of Massachusetts who I know, who I thought might want to be interested in it. What it does is gives me exposure, and I know enough of them who trust me enough that if they know someone who they think might be qualified, if they're not interested in it, they'll pass it along to someone will be interested. And, I also have a bias from having worked at the Cape that not only do you have to have the right fit and you have to have the right technical expertise, but you also have to be aware that unique to Cape Cod, it is the most retail-oriented community that I've ever worked in, and I've worked in a few, and some very active places like Lexington for almost 20 years. People on the Cape want to touch you, they want to feel you, they want access to you, and they want someone that they can relate to. And that is my mission, is to find, based on what I know of the Cape, of what I've gotten for feedback, is to find people that are relatable, that are accessible, that are professional, that have the financial skills that you need to be successful in the future, but also someone who can lead the department heads in the direction that they want to go in, because I was very impressed with the department heads. Not to say that there aren't challenges in other places in the organization. And when I narrow the field down, and I'm trying to give you the best candidates I possibly can, I share those synopsises with each of the candidates that I think have made a certain level of cut. And from there, I make them read it, and we have a discussion about it. And I use that as a way of probing as to whether or not I think someone should move to the next level. And as far as process goes, I make sure that you receive copies of all of the resumes, but I also make a recommendation for you to interview certain people. It doesn't mean that I superimpose my will. It's just, I give you a guarantee that anybody I recommend will stay in town for at least 18 months, or I'll do the search for free. I figure by the time 18 months comes along, the community knows, the candidate knows, and they should know whether or not there's a good fit and there's a good match. And the rest is all, maintenance of the relationship from both sides. I do want to say that, I try to use the synopsis to teach as well. And, I reviewed, before I interviewed this select board, I made sure that they got a copy of the community leader feedback and the staff feedback. And I use that as a basis for my interview with the select board feedback. And during my discussions with them, I try to explain to them that not only will the candidates have expectations, but not only will they have expectations of the candidates, but that the candidates have expectations as well. And that, moving forward, no candidate is going to be successful unless the board is going to be successful. So I try to use it as a teaching tool to help the next candidate come in and create a board and collective attitude where, everybody owns the candidate and everybody owns a successful candidate. And I suspect that I'll be able to pull all of this together and have it to you by the end of February. I've got 10 applicants so far. Probably about 2 or 3 of them are worth, further consideration. And the Cape, sometimes you get applicants from CVS clerks and bakery clerks because they, it's there. And, with email applications, you don't even have to spend the money for a stamp anymore. You just, forward an email to someone. So, but I'm very hopeful, and I've got calls and targets on a number of candidates that I think will serve the town well. But I didn't hear anything from any of you that I haven't heard before, and won't be a high priority for me. I do want to say that I think I agree with Charlie. This is a great opportunity. in a community that has a lot of promise. And although you've got some financial challenges, they're more management challenges than they are, challenges that a candidate might be concerned about with scarcity. There's a lot here for the next person to come in and be very successful. And that's kind of the sales job that I'm going to be using with some of the candidates. That there's an opportunity for someone to come in here and make a difference, but there's also an abundance of riches here that would make them very successful. And I think Charlie agrees with me on that.
So Rick, let me ask you this. Would you recommend that before your work is completed insofar as getting resumes and making recommendations, that we have an interim meeting just to see where you are,
Yes.
progress you're making, maybe something around, the first or the third week in February or something like that?
That would work for me. And I can give you a sense of what I got, and if I've got some really healthy returns, I can scan them and send you all copies of them in the interim. I like to put a complete package together and just give you one package, but if you all want to do that, I'm happy to do that too.
All right, so why don't we do this? I'll work with Rebecca on setting up another meeting date, but can the members of the committee just tell me whether or not they, and you can, I think you can all unmute yourselves, or Rebecca can unmute you. Is this a good meeting time? The only thing I will tell you from my schedule is if I'm in my office, I can obviously free myself up at 2 or 3 o'clock. If I'm in court, particularly in the afternoon, obviously that creates a problem for me. But is this a good day and a good time, whether it be Tuesdays or Thursdays for everyone, or does everybody prefer, does anybody have a recommendation about a different day and time?
Tuesdays are tough for me, Bruce. Tuesday afternoons are probably the worst for me.
Chief Hurley and Chief Polly?
Thursday afternoons would be great.
Fine by me.
All right, you want to shoot for Thursday afternoons instead of Tuesdays?
Sure.
A
Thank
chance
you.
we can make it closer to 1.
That's
Actually, Chief, that would be good, because if I'm in court, there's
1 o'clock
always,
break.
anybody that goes to court knows that the break is always from 1 to 2. So
Right.
even if I'm in court, even if I'm in the middle of a trial, I'm always on break from 1 to 2. So if I get stuck on an afternoon and we do it at 1, that allows me to get into court, which is mostly by Zoom now anyway, by 2 o'clock. So maybe Thursdays at 1 o'clock. Does that work for everybody?
That does.
Yes.
Thank
Yep.
you.
Yes, sir.
All right, and Rebecca, you and I will follow up and talk about a date for the next meeting, but it'll probably be, I'm guessing it might be somewhere, maybe Thursday at 1 o'clock in the first week of February.
I
Richard,
can do that.
okay, but why don't we tentatively, just let me take a look. Take a look at that first February 3rd.
February 10th or 17th.
You want to do it on February 3rd?
I think we'd be better with the 10th.
With the
They have
10th.
something more substantial for you.
Okay, why don't we do it on February 10th at 1 o'clock?
And people should feel free to give me a call if they have any questions or if they want to follow up with anything. I'm happy to work with the chair for the agenda.
And then Bruce, do you want to work with me to get an agenda together?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Do you have my cell phone, Rebecca?
I don't think I do.
That's usually what I have with me all the time.
Okay.
I'll
Email it to me because I have your email.
I'll email it to you. Does
Okay.
anybody have any other questions or anything they want to address before we take a motion to adjourn? Charlie?
Bruce, Yeah, and I was gonna say, when you send that email, could you send me your mobile as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'll respond just in case something comes up that we need to deal with.
Okay, anybody have anything else? No? All right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second,
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Thank
you.
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 Thank you,
Bye.
Rebecca.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.